Hello, hello, Miss
Hello.
Malarvili.
You obviously haven't worked for a long time, right? That you took a while for me to get the poster out a little bit.
That's why I put the poster back again twice.
Yes, yes.
We'll try something different. And you scolded Ashok for pointing out a mistake to you on the live show, and then you do the same thing.
Did I? Okay.
Huh?
Bias. I'm
yeah,
biased. Good
yeah.
evening, Miss. Shruti.
A good evening, Miss Malaysia, PJ, Kuala Lumpur, whichever way you want to talk about it. But everyone, this is how we are in our show. Our show is not the very very smooth, well choreographed. We have little hiccups along the way, and we make fun of each other, but all in good spirit. So Malar, you have picked an interesting topic for this week.
Yes, I have. It's a topic that is really close to my heart. But before
Hmm.
that, I would like to just, for those who have joined us, yes, Geeta Shanmugam has joined us. Hi, Geeta. Thank you for joining us. I want to, for those who are joining us now or later, just want to make an announcement. We are having our Leadership Learning Festival, which is
Yay!
on the 13th of November in Malaysia. So, of course, today it's Malaysia because the focus is well-being. And if you are in the other part of the world, i.e., Singapore, it's on the 20th. But let's focus on the 13th first. So, I'm going to put a link on the comments. So, just register if you are available and you're interested in being part of this leadership conference. Our
Yeah.
theme for this is well-being for leadership age, which then very quickly brings us to the topic for today, isn't it, Shan?
Yes. Yep. I thought that you finding or coming across those two reports was very timely. It gave obviously a lot, and both of us like data. So it gave us a lot of data, but at the same time, it wasn't surprising data. It was interesting data, it wasn't surprising data, right? And what we're going to do today is we're going to unpack that a little bit and talk a little bit more specifically into the area of what, from a leadership perspective, what are some things we could leaders need to take into consideration, right? But before we go into that, let's just welcome everyone to Leadership in Flow Asia, ladies and gentlemen. That's the show you're tuning in to. Today's episode is on Wellbeing Unleashed. We are looking at rethinking the workplace support, the organization support that is being given to leaders as well as people in the team, right? This is season 3, and we started this show. Why? Because very much so because of the quiet leaders that we've been meeting, right? And the quiet leaders do a lot of introspective work to look at how they can improve themselves in terms of their performance, but also improve themselves in terms of their well-being. So we've had many conversations, and this today's conversation is going to be a little bit different. It's just Muller and me um, talking through about well-being, and also talking about the well-being Leadership Learning Festival in Malaysia on the 13th of November. Okay, Mother, let it rip.
All right.
Mm,
So when we talk, so I thought what was interesting is, of course, when we are preparing for our conference, we're
mm,
just wondering, as usual, we're trying to think about, um, is really our well-being serious? And, do we need to pay more attention to it? Because we do hear, wherever we work, well-being is one of the top agendas, right, for
mm,
organizations, leaders, right? And of course, I managed to find two very interesting reports, right?
mm,
And these two interesting reports, what I've attempted to do is bring them together. And for those who are joining us, please join in because we really want to see what we can do about it, because it is a very important aspect of every individual's life and the
mm,
future of actually the world, isn't it?
mm,
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah.
mm.
Before we do that, I'm going to say hello. So Geeta has joined us. Jason has also joined us. Hi, Jay. She goes, hola, good evening, Malar. And Shamini, yes. Ashraf, good to see you again in our show. Yep. And let me just add some, data to what we're seeing. Now, when we talk about global well-being and burnout, right? I think when we talk about well-being, Sham, when we say well-being, what comes to your mind?
Oh, okay. It's almost like my brain went into the opposite, ill being. It's not ill being. Right? So yeah, when you say what's well being, I feel like not ill being. Okay, yeah, that's my first thing. And my brain is a bit dead today, but so yeah, that's the first thing that came to my mind. Ah.
We've had a lot to say. Now, so exactly right. A lot of times the assumption is if I am not ill, I am
Hmm.
well. And we only
Yes.
started thinking about well being more seriously when our mental health numbers started going up. Because
Hmm.
when it comes to mental health challenges, we don't see the illness, the physical illness immediately, but what we see is the challenges and the difficulties that we have in being in a good space for us to do what we do well on a regular daily basis, right? Which is
Hmm.
why and of course, the month of October is Mental Health Month,
Well, yep.
dedicated to mental health, right?
Hmm.
So now, which is why I love WHO's definition, because what they
Hmm.
say is that well being is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well being. And it's not merely the absence of disease or infirmity, right? Now, which then brings us to the idea of, for those who are watching or listening, if I asked you, where are you, where your well being is, what would you say? Do you actually feel
Hmm.
complete, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
now, how do we know we are not complete physically? So, when it comes to physical illness, it's kind of easy for us to know, oh, I'm having a fever, I'm not well, and stuff like that, right?
Hmm.
Whereas when it comes to mental health, we don't know until sometimes it's too late, which is
Yep.
why mental health is gaining so much of importance, isn't it, Sham? Right?
Yep.
And of
Yep.
course, then again, social well-being, and we're going to look at two reports, and at the end of the program we'll put in the full report, the PDF report, in the comment section for you to
Hmm.
download, read it. But what we've actually done is that we've taken excerpts from this report to look at some numbers,
Hmm.
right? And what does this data actually mean to us? All right, for those who've joined us, I hope you would ask us questions, give us your input. Right? Yeah, I think this is from State of Heart report by 6 seconds, right? If you look at global well-being, well, I think we all know post-pandemic we have declined,
Hmm.
right? And so I think this is not a very difficult data to absorb. So what we know is that our our well-being is on a decline, especially
Yep.
post-pandemic,
Yep.
right? So there is global well-being. Now, how do we know it's declining? Because our burnout is increasing. Now,
Hmm.
this is part of all the measures that organizations are taking. So what is not working? Or should we even bother, right? So
Hmm.
we looked at, again, some data from the net, and Singapore, the losses is up to 15.7 billion in terms
Hmm.
of activity. For
Yeah.
Malaysia is 14.5 billion. And I'm sure the government and organizations will agree that we can do a lot with this money, right? So there is
Correct.
a business case, because that's a lot of money to lose, right?
Hold on,
Now,
Amala. Can we go back to
mm,
that? Because I think the numbers in itself, they're significant, but just a little bit of context, right? 15.7 billion equates to 2.9% of our GDP, right? And if you talk about 2.9%, you say, oh, it's only 2%, or it's just nearly 3%. What's the big deal? But if you compare, and it's not a direct comparison. If you compare to our CPF in Singapore, our CPF ordinary account earns 2.5%,
mm,
right? So just to put things in context, right? And if anything happened to that 2.5, if that 2.5 increase, people will shout. If the 2.5 reduce, people will have issues with it, right? So 2.9% of our GDP, that's the number might be singular, but it is significant. I think I just wanted to put a parallel, to that number. If not, it doesn't. It, especially in a country like Singapore, 15.7 billion might not seem a lot because people are dealing with millions most times. Over to you. Sorry.
Mm. All
Mm.
right. Thanks. Thank you. So we know basically, there's a business case and there's a lot to be lost here, right?
Yep.
Now, what is really interesting is I think we looked at two trends, right? The very
Mm.
loud trends in both reports is that one is the trends on Gen Z,
That. Mm.
right?
That's. Mm.
Yeah, uh, Gen Z. And what's really interesting is if you see this, Gen Z experiences more burnout than the older generation.
Yep.
Okay, the younger people, I mean, they're almost 50% of the working population right now, right? And so they burn out. Now, why they burn out? It's not very difficult to understand because they are high achievers. So they're doing a
Mm.
lot of work, they are getting the results, so they burn
But they're
out.
not. Yeah. Like, but they're not
However,
satisfied. They're not satisfied. Yeah.
right,
Mm.
and when we talk about optimal performance, we look at optimal performance. So when we perform and when we do what we enjoy, then it does not eat up our well-being because you're
Mm.
happy, right?
Mm.
But
Mm.
here, now I'm just trying to imagine, right, what it feels, and I'm sure all of us have been in a situation where we produce results in areas that we don't feel satisfied, or in the type of work that doesn't give us joy or
Mm.
satisfaction, right? And which will then increase, you getting into the burnout, right? Because
Mm.
you're not
Mm.
happy. And of course, they had the lowest health and balance scores of
Mm.
any generation. And I suppose this can be understood, right? Because we all remember when we were much younger, you're just trying to figure out your career, you got bills to pay, probably a young family, trying to get a house and a car, right? Just trying to stabilize yourself. And the only other way that you think about is moving up the career ladder, right? And it can get off balance. But so I thought this is really interesting, and I think for leaders, I think it's probably time for us to just pause a little bit and say, hey, what do we need to do about this? Because this are our future leaders.
Yep.
And if they're already burning out now and not feeling satisfied, can you imagine them in time to come?
Mm.
Cham, you're going to say something.
Yeah. I think when you look at the age and the physical health, there's also another element to think about, right? The element is the element of youth. And when we were younger, while you had that, yeah, so you had that uh, comparison about where we are in the life stage. When we were younger, we usually don't pay so much attention to our health. Right? Why? Because we're young. What can possibly happen to us? And
Mm,
that might be doing us a disservice, and leaders may also be missing that out because hey, they're young. What can happen to them? They're young. They've got a longer runway, right? Before BP comes up, cholesterol comes up, and things like that, right? Um, and so maybe another thing to think about is also to consider the age being something that we take for granted in terms of our health, and therefore we don't pay so much attention to it. And from an organizational perspective, we may not be regarding their physical health as something that they need to pay attention to, and for leaders to perhaps nudge them in the right way. So I think there are two things depending on where you're coming from. The other is in terms of satisfaction. Um, is there a right job fit in the first
Mm,
place? Maybe it's
mm.
not the right job fit, and that's why you have low satisfaction. And maybe the Gen Zs are making decisions on the fly, or maybe they're making decisions based on the fact that, you know what, if I'm not happy, I can just bump up. I'm young, I can move on to another job. Okay, or I have multiple options available to me. So that might be also a consideration to, you know, keep in mind, to consider, to explore, if you have, Gen Zs with it. And I like this because, I like this data. Why? Because in one of my modules, we did a PERMA, Martin Seligman's model on happiness and well-being, and our target audience was Gen Zs, as well as the millennials, because, like you rightly said, they make up 50% of the workforce right now, right? And they are going to be future leaders. So are we looking at the numbers correctly for this particular group? Are we giving them enough attention and focus, as if you're a leader of a team of Gen Zs and millennials?
Yeah, but if you think about your experience, right, when you work, with the different leadership groups that you
Mm,
work, so in my own experience, I find that whether we are doing a diversity program or a team building program or a leadership program, the
mm,
focus has always been the younger generation. It used to be millennials,
mm,
right? How to get along with millennials, how to keep them motivated. And I mean, to a point that I really felt that we were not doing justice to diversity and inclusion, because it seems like all we
mm,
care is only this generation, right? And now
mm,
it is shifted that we actually pay a lot of attention. So if you just Google, right, and look at generations and how to deal with generations, you will find a lot of to do, what to do, how to manage, how to handle, how to
yep,
motivate, and it's
right.
all about Gen Z, right?
Exactly. Yep.
They don't tell you how to keep the Gen X's, for example,
Mm,
motivated
mm,
before they
mm,
retire, right?
mm,
And that's not happening. Despite so for me, it's despite the attention that they've been given,
mm,
their satisfaction scores are low, right?
mm,
And the satisfaction is low, okay? Balance, we understand. Burnout
mm,
is high, achievement
mm,
is high.
mm.
So, what could that possibly mean, right? And the trend that I'm looking at, in terms of when I'm working with generally people, right? I think one of those things I realize is that we are moving towards more short-term goals. We are looking at how to achieve numbers. We're
Okay.
not looking at, I don't see many organizations paying attention to retaining expertise. So you
Mm,
are being, recognized and rewarded, to make sure you meet the KPI and increased KPI. How can you do it faster and better in terms
mhm,
of quality,
mm,
uh, but not necessarily growth, right? And we also know that if you're in the training industry, so what I have seen in the training industry, when people come for training, even at the highest level, right, people come and people are multitasking during training because
yes.
have got
They have
right work to
numbers.
do,
Oh, yep.
right? Yeah. So and everyone is running a lean organization, right?
Mm,
And how do you upskill or reskill yourself and build foundational skills that you need for tomorrow as you go up the corporate ladder? And if you're not growing, you're just churning out results, right? Would that
mm.
give you satisfaction?
Generally, no. I think that, and the data is showing that already, right?
Yeah.
If I think it gives you short-term satisfaction, but the long-term, and even today, right, as you're talking about it, what is short-term and what is long-term, the definition of that has changed. So people might say, oh no, short term, maybe they get satisfaction, but the short term could be 3 months and long term could be 1 year. We need to rethink that idea as well. I'm just going to put up what AJ Prabhakaran mentioned or commented. Hello, Malar, Shamini, and Jay. Okay. We are looking at achieving numbers, quote unquote. Okay. Interesting perspective. Uh, he says, okay, I'd be interesting to know why he thought that it's interesting. So, Major, if you are still with us, please tell us why you thought it was interesting, because then we can unpack it a little bit more. Okay. Let's talk
Yeah.
about.
So,
Mm,
so one of those things that, when you talk about well-being, right? So ill-being, very
mm,
quickly, ill-being, whether it's mental health or physical health, most of
mm,
our lifestyle illnesses, 75% of our illnesses are lifestyle illnesses. And they come, very quickly, we all know that we attribute it to cortisol.
mm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And cortisol is really chronic stress.
Mm,
So I'm just imagining if you are from this generation, waking up every day to meet numbers, to increase your achievement over and over again, and you need to find the fastest, best, cheapest way to get that done over and over again,
mm,
um, to first keep your job,
mm.
to
Yep.
second, prove a point that you're so good at it that the organization should keep you. I'm just wondering whether that would, because you said short term satisfaction, I see that as really trying to survive. It's survival
Mm,
mode that is getting us the numbers, not thriving,
okay. That's interesting.
right?
Mm.
Yeah, that's what is coming to my mind. And as usual, I'm happy to acknowledge that I'm very biased towards these numbers. Think about it, right?
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
look at a bit on Gen Z, right? Now, so let's look at how they behave and see whether this is cortisol producing, right? Whether we are surviving when we do this or we are
yeah.
thriving, right? They are
Mm-hmm.
more cautious. So can you imagine now you're achieving more, you're getting the numbers, you're not satisfied, and you have to be careful. You're cautious. You are only thinking about short term. How do I get my results today? All
Mm.
right. And they prefer direct action. Just tell me what to do and I'll get it done, right? Just tell me what I can do, instead of how do I influence and work with people, collaborate with people. Now we're not saying that they are not collaborative, but they so how do I get measured on my effectiveness? It's through my individual contribution and my results, right?
Mm. Mm.
So, which then shows up as my, direct action. Just tell me what I can do. Don't tell me who I need to work with, right?
Yep.
Now, and the great news is, Gen Z are more balanced between empathy and awareness. So there's
Mm.
high awareness, and I think we see this on social media. The young people are just so mature,
Mm.
right? I'm looking at a lot of young people, the kind of things they say, and I'm like thinking, gosh, I wish I had this wisdom when I was younger, right? I don't even
Yep.
know whether I have it now, right? But they are more balanced. So here they are aware of themselves. That means they know who they are, and they also understand what it feels to be in another person's shoe,
Mm.
right? So they
Mm.
have both of that. So you can't even say they are in their own world. But having said that, these are choices they are making. The choice to be more cautious, to look at short term
Mm.
and direction. So this is why I think that what's probably causing burnout is the need to survive in the role.
Mm. Okay.
Mm.
Okay.
You want to?
Yeah, I just had a thought. I had a counter thought, and I'm like, okay, what if their satisfaction is driven by the fact that they're looking for the ideal role,
Mm.
right? what if the satisfaction is that I'm looking for the ideal role? This is not the ideal role. It's okay. And which may attribute, that may be the reason why you find that the Gen Zs tend to move into different roles very, very quickly. Right. And I think it's something that we need to explore a little bit more. But that's been like what people tend to talk about, or leaders tend to talk about when they're looking at, by generation. So maybe the satisfaction comes from that, right? And also being not directive, but direct rather than indirect, as opposed to, or not as opposed to, aside from waiting for instructions, what they're doing is, I'll do it my way, I'll figure it out, rather than, even if it means that I have to do more things myself, I'll do it, rather than having to go and have a conversation to convince Muller that this is what I need her to do. Even though I know that if Muller is on board, my weight, the load on me is not so much, and we probably can achieve the stuff together rather than just on my shoulders. So I'm kind of reading it that way. And to me, that means that autonomy is driving them, right? The preference for autonomy rather than collaboration. And so then if you have a group that's highly autonomous, and they're pushing, because collaboration means you have to influence. Yeah. Whether it's indirect influence or direct influence, you have to influence, right? When you don't have authority, how do you influence and get people on board? So if you have this dichotomy, right, between autonomy and collaboration, and you have a team, how does a leader think about their development? How does a leader think about, how do I get them more collaborative? Because as much as we're getting lean, we're also getting a bit, matrix, right? We are doing double, we're doing a lot of things. We're doing cross-functional stuff, or maybe we are doing, different projects, multiple projects together. Your thoughts, Muller?
Yeah, so that's would I agree with you? Yeah, but yes, I agree with you. Having said that, if you look at the way organizations are operating, you cannot increase performance so quickly if people were not autonomous, especially post COVID.
Hmm.
Uh, hybrid working, working from home, the
Hmm.
reason we became more productive is we had less interruptions,
Yep.
right? And the systems and structures were there to support us to work from home, right?
Hmm.
Which is why,
Hmm.
if you real, well, I think if we recognize in the beginning of COVID, organizations were not so excited about work from home until they saw the numbers that was going up. And then what happened is, what I saw was a transition of leaders who decided, okay, we're getting numbers and we're getting better numbers. Let's rally for work from home.
Hmm.
Now, but if we look at 2023, so we had the quiet quitting last year that we were talking about a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, so that was that transition. And if you look at it, like by end of 2023, the problem that we were recognizing is people were moving jobs. People didn't feel a sense of belonging to the
Hmm.
jobs
Hmm.
or to the organization, which then means that, people are just ready to move. It's just a job,
Hmm.
because I don't have
Yep.
a sense of belonging to the job, to the people, or to the purpose of the business. Now,
Hmm.
now, how do you then retain people? How do you then retain talent, right? For continuous improvement of the business, because you need people who understand the business. So if you look at it, right, like, I think we've driven ourselves there. And this year, what I am recognizing is that if you look at businesses, we are saying, okay, now we need to be collaborative. And you find that some organizations have gone two steps back and said, we want our people back,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
I have a
Yep.
couple of clients who say, I know you like to work from home, but I need you here 5 days a week or three
Hmm.
days a week,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So, and we know that individuals, in terms of employees prefer either hybrid work, that becomes the number one reason,
Mm,
right? In terms of their choice of jobs, right? Hybrid or work from home is preferred. And I think the question for us to think about is, why is hybrid work so important for them?
mm,
What is it that they are feeling so strongly that they feel that I need to work from home? Is
mm,
it because I like working alone and I am effective, or I'm looking
mm,
at it, I just get my tasks done,
mm.
right? And get paid well. At the same time, reduction in costs, increase
Yep.
in time because I don't have to travel. And
Mm,
by the way, and I've asked this question to my participants, right? When you work from home, do you rest better, socialize better,
mm,
exercise better, or when we talk about balance, or do you do that when you are probably traveling for work?
mm. How
Because
was
we've
that?
seen, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
think about it, right? Because now,
Yep.
why do I want to work from home? The answers I hear is, now I get to cook
Mm,
my children a meal, which is fantastic. But what does that mean? That means that I don't get to rest during lunch,
mm, mm-hmm.
or I use my lunchtime to go and send and pick up my children from school. It's fantastic. You get time, but what does that mean? That
Mm,
means you are going to be tired, right? Physically, you're not getting the rest. Okay, you're not commuting, right? We say we spend 2 hours commuting. Totally agree. But what do you do with the time that you so-called save from commuting?
yep.
These are things we're not looking at.
Mm,
We don't want to ask the question because we know the answers, right?
mm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we know that, employees also say, when I work from home, I work very, very long hours,
Mm.
right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So these are things that, I mean, that's really from my perspective, from what I've heard. And but let's just look at more numbers, right?
Chop, chop, chop. I need to say
Sure.
hello to people. Okay, okay. Hi, Rebecca Benjamin. Yes, yes, yes. And Becky's joining us from KL. Thanks for joining us, Becky. And yeah, ask questions, give your comments if you think we're off whack, especially with what you're seeing in your organization. Let us know, yeah. Also, we have Melanie Aloysius with us. Hello, Muller, Asham and Muller. Interesting insight. Thanks, Mel. And Major actually answered my question. Okay, he said at times driving numbers to achieve stretch goals results in negative stress, kills authentic enthusiasm. We need more people to be in flow. With a smile, he puts it up there.
He
Okay,
said the word that excites me: flow.
flow. Okay, all right. So we move from the generations to gender. I'm seeing a pattern of G's. Okay. Um, I'm biased, but yeah. Yes. So let's talk a little bit about
Okay,
gender,
G is Shamini's most favorite alphabet.
most used alphabet. There we go. Okay. Gender trends. Okay. What's happening here to the guys?
Yeah,
Hmm.
our poor men. My goodness, this one really is sad, right? So
Hmm.
if we look at the gender gaps, men are not feeling so good. Their EQ has dropped,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Now, but what I really loved about this is that before 2021, our
Yeah.
EQ, emotional intelligence, was similar.
Yep. Yep.
So this, I think it's fantastic, right? But what's happening now is that their emotional intelligence has declined,
Hmm.
right? And what we want to think about is, what does that mean to men,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. And the decline is quite significant if you look at the slope, right? Looking at the numbers, but I just look at the slope. It's quite interesting. I, I'm very excited to know what will come out of the 13 November Learning Festival, right? When we talk about the men's circle and the women's circle, what aspect comes out in terms of that can correspond with this number, right?
Ex-
We women might look at our numbers and say, yes, we are, stronger. I think so. We have become a little bit more EQ friendly, if there's such a word. All right. We have surpassed the men. Oh yes, but I think we need to dig deeper into the that curve as well, because may not be all hunky dory. I don't think it's all sunshine. Before you say anything, I'm going to just flash out some comments that are coming in. Shamini Vasu, oh, that's my namesake. Hi, Malar and Sham. Yeah, without they are. Thank you for your discussion on work from home versus office. From my experience, work from home gives us space to be comfortable, personalize our space for optimal performance. Okay, that's interesting perspective. And Rebecca chips in. She says, I am totally with you on the hybrid work, on that hybrid working helps company that trusts their employees definitely makes a difference. Yes, I think you put in a very important ingredient, trust, right? If there's trust, and trust means basically you get things done without me having to check on you every other hour or minute, then things happen and people get generally positive results and higher well-being. Okay, coming back to gender trends. I am thinking that the women may be maybe a case of overuse.
Overuse of.
EQ, empathy, because we're not some, I don't know lah. Could be because you've been following, right? Generally, the men and the women, the male and the females have been said, but at 2021, it went in opposite directions, right? Quite significantly, in opposite directions. So yeah, just being cheeky here, and I'm sure some people might be upset about it, but yeah, maybe too much overuse. Cut
I
it
don't
down.
know. I think what will be interesting, I mean, for me, I think we hear a lot of, I mean, there's a louder voice
Mm-hmm.
uh, for women, right, at workplace, which we need, which is good. And one of those things that I've often thought about is that I don't think we have paused to ask what's happening with the men. Despite the mental health numbers are higher with men, suicide is higher with men, addiction is higher with men, which
Yep.
means that they have stress levels that's really, really high,
Hmm.
and they're able to cope. Which is why I hope for those who are joining us on the 13th of November, we are going to have Professor Mori, who actually runs Men's Circle, for them to speak up, because I think we also need to, while you can point the finger at the men and say you don't talk, you don't tell, but I don't know whether we've ever given them permission to do that for
Yep. Or the
situations, right?
space to do that. Yeah. Just before we get into the second bit, right? Just here, these numbers. We also need to keep in mind. Ugh, my tongue today. Keep in mind that data shows that post pandemic, there's been an increase in women's participation in the workforce. That means there have been more women coming into the workforce, and that could account for the numbers going like that, in a different way. I don't know. I'm just thinking. But anyway, move on.
Okay. Now let's look at men. Let's pay a bit more attention to our wonderful men. Now, men outperform. All right. So men's professional network outperforms personal community scores. So
Hmm.
basically, men are doing very well professionally. So they are using their energy professionally, which has always been the case,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Except that I think during COVID, men probably had a different experience of having to stay home with the families and not being
yeah.
able to do all the things that they usually do well, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
However, so while men are celebrating their professional success, now let's look at their success factors in terms of effectiveness, quality of life, relationship, and well being is declining.
Relationship has taken a nice upward trend. Just there at
Slightly.
2022. Yeah, it's kind
Like,
of gone up. Yeah, that's the only one that's picked up.
mm.
Yeah, but yes, well-being is
Well-being is at its yeah, it's low,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um,
It's always been low, but it's now been it's I think seriously something has to be done about it.
it makes sense, doesn't it? If their mental health numbers are high, so our
Yep.
addiction numbers among men is high, right? Because
Yeah.
we women haven't caught up. Because I know that the last I saw addiction numbers for women, it is slowly but surely increasing because we are more resourceful now. We
Yeah.
also, so yeah, this is now, and so it's the well-being is declining, right? Now let's look at
Mm,
women's well-being. So this will might answer your question. uh Women's well-being score decline while others improve and stabilizes, right? So well-being is down, quality
mm,
of life, relationship is better, we're more
mm,
effective, so we're
mm.
doing work better. We are happy with our results. We are working on our relationship naturally, because if we are working, our quality, our well-being will go down because we are working on it, right? Which has
Mm.
always been that way. Now, women leaders empathy scores are shifting.
Ha! Okay. Yes, way. Let's see.
Yeah.
Look
So,
into a look.
and it's shifting, not necessarily going up, because
Mm,
earlier you said, we might be empathizing,
mm.
but it is not true according to
Yeah.
these results, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, it makes sense, right? So you can empathize, but we know when we spend a lot of time empathizing, putting ourselves in another person's shoe, you can't get the job done. So when you want to get the job done, you just be objective.
Yep, exactly right. So at some point in 2022, we realized, or the women realized that okay, we need to get come back into balance, right? And that's why you see on 2022 all the numbers, the
Yeah.
spike was down, right? Yeah.
And so the interesting thing is that in the past we used to say, the women naturally are more empathetic,
Hmm.
and bring them into the workforce hoping for more diversity.
Mm-hmm.
But if we lose that,
Yeah.
and men are also not increasing that, we probably don't have the diversity that we believe we had, is something that I
Oh,
want to
yep.
just add, right? Because we are learning how to be successful by the success factors that was determined by the men's
Mhm.
world,
Yep. Yep.
because you need to, otherwise you cannot progress in your career. So I think these are some things probably for us to think about in terms of diversity and inclusion that we
Mm-hmm.
often see, and I wonder whether there is diversity even if you look at just the two genders, right?
Genders. Yep. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So here, now this is this is very important, and what's really outstanding here is that people are stressed up because of the rising cost of living. This is a
Yes.
major
Okay. This one is my favorite. One of my favorite parts.
yeah, this is a major stress. Yeah, you want to say something?
No, 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 no. I just say it's my favorite part because I think we don't talk about it enough.
Yeah. So what
Mm,
so what is interesting is, I mean, there's been so many. I think leaders who are listening in, we need to know that I find leaders are working very hard every time. Every
mm,
other year, you're given a new thing to deal with, right? make your people happy, make sure there's enough diversity and inclusion, make
Mm,
sure there's psychological safety, make sure you meet the numbers, right? So it's like
yep.
make sure. And I do think the leaders are working so hard because the results are showing. How are the
Mm,
results showing? And we'll see, right? People are happy, but people need more money because of the rising cost. So if you
mm,
look at, that's the top issue. Now, for me to deal with my rising costs, and this is Malaysia and Singapore, right? If I want to, so it's the same, right? If I want to, I need more money to live better. So I work harder,
correct.
burn out,
Mm,
right? And what's
mm,
also interesting here is that people are wishing for the workplace to support them with their rising living cost,
mm,
which
mm,
means that you give me different allowances so that I can cope better, right?
mm.
I mean, then again, looking at it objectively, is it my problem if I'm the business, right?
Into business. Yep, exactly. Yep.
Right. But so it's a
Mm,
it's a tough one, right? So how are leaders going to help to support this, to make this? Are we going to, and we're going lean, so what might happen is I jump for another job that will expect me to do 20% more,
mm,
and that doesn't solve the burnout issue for
correct.
now. But in the long run, this also means that we're going to have more breakdowns,
Mm,
more ill health that's going to show up, because these people eventually have to age, and all the hard work that you're doing now and not doing enough care is going to show up in illnesses, which is also going to be part of the organizational system, right?
yep.
Now, this again, this is interesting, right? Because here what they're saying is that I want to be, so what's really nice is that, so if you look at what people want you to minimize their cost by paying for it, or
Mm,
minimize the expenses, right? Give me health insurance. I don't want to pay for dental, which is all fine, right? Life insurance, retirement planning. Give me everything. I want to work from home and look after all my normal expenses that, the older generation had to, budget for. I don't want to budget for all of this because there is no money, extra money to budget.
mm.
All of that. Plus, I thought what is really interesting, rewards and recognition, and these are the norms, right? Now, can we have less company events, channel that budget into increasing our salary?
Mm,
This is my favorite, because I think one of those things that organizations now need to maybe pay a little bit of attention is, if you are seen to be spending money extravagantly, you might think it is for employees, recognition. But they are
listen. Mm,
saying, I don't want all of this recognition, just like share that with me so that I can take home a bit more.
mm, mm,
So, when we talk about engagement exercises, when we talk about well-being, wellness programs, right?
mm.
Not everybody is going to jump at it because all they're saying is just show me the money, right?
Yep.
Because I want to be able to manage my life better. So you can see just from what they want, there's so much of stress that people are experiencing because of the rising cost of living, right?
There's
And so
mm,
yeah, sorry. And I
no,
think
no.
it's time for leaders, or for us to think about beyond paying fair remuneration. Beyond that, what else can we do for people to cope better, because there is real pain here,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
Sham, you go ahead.
Yeah. I there is paying fair. There's paying market rate. Okay, and there's also paying, and you could be paying fair. You could be paying market rate, or maybe not market rate. But are we paying? Is any salary increment taking into account the inflation that the country is going through? Okay.
Mm,
So you might get an increment, but it's not factoring in the inflation. So this is from an organizational perspective. So are we doing justice to our people? right? Or the numbers go up, but actually what we're doing is we are getting less back home because everything else is going up at a rate that's higher than our salary increment. Yeah, that's one. Number two is, yes, I can see how people are asking companies, and this was a question I was asking. I asked when I was employed so many years ago, why are we spending money on this one-off 3 hour, big dinner, and then, we go back and we don't get a salary increment next year because we don't have this. Okay, or the salary increment is just it's not a salary increment, it's just a bonus kind of a thing, right? So where are organizations spending money, as you rightly said? Is it being done in the useful way, or is it being done because we just want to feel good that we have done this and we've ticked the boxes? Okay. The third thing that comes to mind is finance management.
Mm.
And finance management is something that I think organizations have shied away from because we kind of think that it is private. But at the same time, you're looking at two elements, right? If people are not happy with the salary that they're getting, that they're going to go somewhere else. Right? So how can we help them better manage, not just for now? What are we doing to help develop those skills so that they're able to manage for the now plus also the long term, right? How can they think about cost? So I'm looking at it from, is the organization giving rightful, fair, okay, inflation calibrated increments or salary raises? Yeah. How what are we also doing in terms of, as an individual with individual responsibility, to see how I'm spending and whether I'm spending wisely? Do I have the skills? Do I have the knowledge? Do I have the awareness that what I'm doing is balanced and financially, or am I overextending myself? Yeah, so I think it's like, to me, it's two-sided responsibility. That's my perspective. And I think it's something that organizations and leaders shy away from because we consider it private, we consider it sensitive, confidential, and we don't go into that territory. I'm not suggesting we talk about it, but are we equipping our people to think about finances in a way that helps them, breathe a little bit better? Hmm.
As you say that, right? In a recent self-care program that we were running, so I think we did it for about a group of 200 people, young people, right?
Hmm.
Who were supposedly were paid in terms of their salary above average salary, right? This organization was known for that.
Hmm.
Now, all the top thing for them was, yes, finances. We want more money. Now, guess what was the top reason they wanted more money? Take a good guess.
Top reason they wanted more money. Buy a house, their dream house, or I don't know, car.
So we collected this whole post-it pads, right, while doing
Uh-huh.
this exercise. They actually said, so the top reason most of them asked for immediately, I want more money, is I want to be able to drink better coffee.
Seriously? Oh my god! See?
Okay. So I mean, um, yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack there as to,
Hmm.
yes, we need to be fairly paid. So, what is fair payment? We need
Hmm.
work life balance. So, and I think with AI and generative AI, I mean, look at how I come from the typewriter era, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Right? I come from the typewriter era, and from that era to where we are, uh,
Yep.
every time when technology progresses, it's supposed to reduce our workload, but only
Hmm.
the opposite has happened.
Hmm. Okay.
Right, so
Yep.
increasing costs, yeah, and stuff like that. I think that's something really for us to think about.
Hmm.
Jay says this sounds very familiar. I think she's talking about the coffee. Shamini
Ah.
again jumps up and say, for company events, I think it should be the opulence of certain events. I can see how if I'm struggling financially with insufficient increments and going to fancy company events regularly. Yeah, I mean, I think what they're talking about is they want to know whether they're spending time money purposefully, right?
Yeah,
Or
correct.
hearing we have no budget for more team members, but seeing grandeur in other matters that don't have direct impact other than visibility. Fantastic. I mean, I totally agree. Right. Because
Mm,
now we have young people who are questioning how the money is being spent when you say you got no money for me. And I think that's
mm.
a fair question. It's
Yep.
a very, very fair question, right?
Yep.
And that's why you need leaders who are accountable. Now, so this last one is really also very interesting, right? So if you look at the previous one, this looked at, in their own words, what they thought wasn't working very well, right? And what they wanted more. And here, this is very interesting because on one hand, they want more wellness program, work-life balance, give more trust. I think we've, more social events, flexible working hours, right? More
Yep.
pay, more
Yep.
evolve, more control. But for me, the most exciting part of this is I think people are shouting out for more social interaction, more
Mm,
meaningful social interaction because people want to connect with people and that's pretty obvious. So why? Because if you looked at the numbers, almost that, so 50% is saying that their employers are paying attention to all of this. 50% is saying not enough, and for
mm,
those who don't have enough, they're asking for what other groups are already having.
mm.
And these are new, but for me what was new, and of course again being biased, that excited me is that people want social interaction at work that is
Yep.
meaningful, and that's important for them. Because if you look at both the reports, especially the employment hero report, which I will put in the comments later in my in the comments area for you to
Mm,
download, is that there is a great improvement in terms of relationship between employee and their direct managers. So
mm,
managers, immediate managers, supervisors are doing a lot to build relationship, listen to them,
mm,
right? So that's
mm.
improved. They see the value of relationship and interaction. So and that's clear, right? So but if I'm doing a lot of work and there's no social interaction,
Yeah.
then that's also going to add on to my burnout. Yeah,
Yep.
so
Yep.
that's almost time. So Sham,
Yes,
what do we do
Miller.
now with all of this?
Sorry, what is it again?
What do we do with all of this information now?
Okay. Have lots more conversations and invite people to be our guests and leaders to our guests to unpack it. Especially leaders um who have a way of talking about these subjects to their team, you know, and or I have been grappling with it. But my I don't. I've been biased about this. My angle is the finance angle. I'm like, what more can we do about? I think it's a low hanging fruit that we keep avoiding and not wanting to explore because it comes with a lot of taboos. Um, the people who know how to do this kind of work, I think we need to start talking to them because once you, this is my hypothesis, or as one of my G's used to say, my hypothesis. That if we take care of this, you will see. I'm not saying it's eliminating, but you will see a drop in terms of stress and burnout. A quite significant drop in stress and burnout for many people if they're able to get a handle on their finances. That's my hypothesis.
That's the means to many things that we aspire in life,
Yeah,
whether, right? I mean, everything is accounted for in dollars and cents, right? So
yeah,
you
yeah,
can make sense out of dollars and cents and know how, and if you feel you are in control of that, because when you do not have control over finances, it naturally will increase anxiety
Yep.
and
Right.
stress.
And stress. Exactly.
And to take control, the only other way we know is to work harder, better,
Yep. Correct.
right? and and
Yep.
and so it is really, where do we start? Are we ready to have the most important sensitive conversations?
Mm.
um, and I think it may sound intruding, but you know uh, if we need to talk about it, we need to talk about it. I mean,
Yeah,
we've we've spoken about the most sensitive things like gender, right?
yes, exactly.
Yeah, I don't see this
Yeah.
sensitive. I see it as essential skills that
Mm.
is required,
Yep.
for us to manage. Yeah. So yeah, let's do the closing. And
Yes.
7:02.
It's 7:02. Oh my goodness. Okay. Yes. So we've come to the end, ladies and gentlemen. You want to plug your 13 November again? Or before that, share what Gita is talking about?
Yeah,
Oh,
Tina says
yeah.
stress, anxiety, and burnout is so real today. Thank you for touching on this topic. You're most welcome. Yeah, I think it's an evergreen topic. Having said that, I think the numbers are really scary because
Mm.
I think what we realize is that the cost of healthcare has increased, which means and organizations are not looking after healthcare as they used to because it's a burden on them too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a tough one. How do we do this? And I think that the easiest way to do it is actually first look after yourself. As
Yes,
I
you
say
are
that, I,
right.
I say
Yep.
that get your priorities right and look after yourself. For those who are plugged in, go to www.hearts-minds.com and register for our upcoming Leadership Learning Festival, and hope to see you there on the 13th of November.
Yeah, and
With
if you want to see the two of us, then you come to that event on the 13th of November.
the
So,
three of us,
ladies,
the gentleman
the
is
three
also
of us, yeah. So, like Ashur was saying in the message to you, Malar, the numbers are it's not. And oh
new.
wow, the numbers have been there around. We know the numbers. The numbers hasn't changed. It's either going to go up, going to go down, right? In the trajectory that it is in now. The question is, what are we going to do about it? The question is not about whether well-being is important or not. It is important. And the question is, what are leaders and organizations going to do? Are we listening to what people are saying and people are telling us? On that note, thank you for joining us and for all that rich questions, comments, hellos. Thank you very much for joining us today. We are back next week with a guest, and we'll keep you informed. Just look up for it. You know it'll come out sometime next week. Who we're talking to and what we're talking about. And on that note, I'm going to say bye because I am late for my module on applied positive psychology. It's my last module, and then I graduate.
And then we'll have a celebration. With that, well, good night, and thank you for joining us. And remember to register and follow us, Malar, Shamini, and Ashok, so that you're updated on our upcoming programs. With that, good night.